Hi, Homeschool Mom. It's Kim here today. I hope you're having a wonderful 2025 so far. It is the last week in January currently, and we are changing up our podcast format a little bit, starting with this episode. We want to get right to the point and deliver helpful resources to you right away in our podcast. The episode topic today is so close to my heart. It's about new adventures in your homeschool for this new year. And it was so fun for me because I got to go through some of the journals that my kids and I kept during our homeschool journey. And if you don't know already, I was a huge journaling fanatic in our homeschool. I mean, I must have had like 12 different kinds of journals, and I keep them all in this little tub. They're just like little memory books for us now. Well, for me, like my kids don't want to look at that stuff, right? But I loved it. So I'm going to highlight about 10 different experiences that we had and hope to inspire you to get out of your boring routine, to share some different exciting educational adventures with your kids and maybe even your homeschool community, because a lot of these things we did in a small group with our homeschool friends. These are things that you can do around your home, your community, your county, your state, and I'll even share a way that we had some experiences from around the world. Just ways to shake up our boring routine, and looking at all of the journals and the ways that my kids were able to creatively respond to these rich educational experiences. I just, again, was struck by the fact that this is what made our homeschool deep and rich, and it wasn't just the books. And I've said before that as a former public school teacher, I did kind of always feel like I had to cover my bases and make sure that we had formal curriculum. But if I did it now, knowing what I know and where my kids are right now in their lives at 16 and 20, I just feel like these experiences were empowering so much more than just hitting the books, beyond the four walls experiences. Which, by the way, that's what I wanted to name our homeschool, Beyond the Four Walls. What a great name for a school, right? So hang tight. I think you're really going to be blessed by all of these ideas, and they will inspire you. But first, I want to share the Homeschool Style quiz. This is a free resource that you can find in our website link in the show notes. Jen made this quiz to help you uncover the homeschooling style that fits you and your child like a glove. It will help you decide, are you a free-spirited unschooler, a structured traditionalist, or a creative eclectic? This is going to save you time by helping you gain clarity and confidence at where your starting point is for choosing the just right approach and method and curriculum for your family. It's a brief quiz to help you understand your educational philosophy. It will also give you recommendations for a homeschool approach based on your answers. And there's a note-taking page to help you keep track of your curriculum ideas that match your methods, which you will come up with after you take the quiz. You can find that link to the What's My Homeschool Style quiz in the show notes. It's a quick PDF download, and best of all, it is free. All right, let's get to the new experiences for the new year. I'm going to start with virtual trips. These are things that you and your family can do right in front of your computer. There are a myriad of virtual educational field trips. Put that phrase into your search bar and link it with a subject that you are studying, and you'll be amazed at how many options there are. My absolute favorite and most impressionable experience for this is the Corrie ten Boom house tour. Her book, The Hiding Place, was an audiobook that we listened to as a family when my kids were old enough to deal with the heavy topic of Nazi Germany and the persecution of the Jews and the people who helped them. And there's just so many miracles that happen in her life and their story from that book. And to be able to take the virtual tour of their house, which is now a museum, and see the little town square, it's just such an amazing virtual experience. It's so well done. The virtual tour for the Corrie ten Boom house, and the book again is called The Hiding Place. And the second virtual trip link that I'm putting was a surprise that I found in my son's current online architecture class. I was working on this podcast, and then I was helping him with his plans for the day, and I noticed that there was a virtual trip of the Hollyhock House, which is a Frank Lloyd Wright design. And the website is very well done. It's very easy to navigate that virtual tour of the Hollyhock House and find out all about Frank Lloyd Wright's designs. And what a surprise, right? My boy is taking this class from Excelsior Classes, which is an excellent online school. And I was so pleased that they are using a resource like that. And the last virtual tour is for all ages. It's Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia. I haven't been to that site in a while. What an amazing tour that is, just right on your computer. This is just a phenomenal site to visit. They also have a virtual scavenger hunt. So look at that page before you have your kids do it, because the pages like flip over really quickly, the little clues. You don't want to like find the answer too quickly. Orientate yourself to the site maybe before you put your kids down in front of it, especially the scavenger hunt part. Those are my 3 virtual field trips: the Corrie ten Boom house, the Frank Lloyd Wright design of the Hollyhock House, and Colonial Williamsburg. You can always do an internet search with the terms online educational field trips and then add the subject area that you're studying, history, science, math, even math. See what comes up. Relate it to the specifics of what you are studying. Who knows? Maybe there is a virtual field trip for algebra. That would be awesome, right? Anything to make learning come alive. And it starts right there on your computer screen. The next inspiring idea comes from your yard. Yes, that's right. Backyard, front yard. Maybe you have a little garden, or maybe you just have some native plants that draw butterflies. This idea comes from a citizen science project that involved tagging monarch butterflies. When we did this, it was literally you catch the butterflies in your butterfly net, and then you hold them and put this sticker in a certain spot on their body. And now when I went to their website, it's called Monarch Watch. They have an app, and they have many other easy ways that you can become involved in tagging monarch butterflies. There are also many other citizen science projects, if you didn't know about that. We found out about them through 4-H when the kids were required to do service projects. That was a great place to start because there's a big long list of different citizen science projects. But my girl was really into butterflies because I had milkweed plants in the front yard. It wasn't a serious garden, but there's so much amazing feedback in her nature journal about the experiences with the butterfly plants in our front yard. She had names for these butterflies. I'll never forget one chrysalis. They made it right on the back of one of our porch chairs that was right next to the window. So every day she would open the window to the front porch and check on her little chrysalis. Monarch Watch. Download the app. It looks super cool. Also look at the junior scientist workbook they have on that website that you can print out. And you can do that right in your yard. You add your nature journal entries to that, or maybe they make a poster. They take some videos every once in a while about what's happening with the butterflies. And there's a creative way to respond about their butterfly experiences. The next idea comes from things that are available around your neighborhood. We used to walk to a local park that had a pond and so many turtles. There were bass in the pond. They could go fishing. There ended up being invasive species of fish in the pond, and we had a whole experience with that and why they need to be eradicated, and that was kind of sad. But once they found a duck nest with the eggs, and this is all just from walking over to the local park when we were done with school, but then because we came home and put it in our nature study book, it made it a rich educational experience. Maybe they drew about it and I helped them label some of the words, when they were younger, or write down what they thought about it. Also, does your local park have an education center. Oh my goodness, what a gold mine those places are. We have one in our town that has animals in it. It's like a mini rescue for some birds and owls. Count that as school and go back regularly to check on the status of what's going on there and what's happening with the animals. Maybe there's an interesting historical marker or a statue. There's another cool app that I just found recently that I wish I had when my kids were little. I'm going to put it in the show notes. It's called History Near Me. It will tell you any historical things that happen in your town and if there is a memorial to those things. All right, let's take your mindset from just your local neighborhood to your town. And immediately I thought of the library. And the one thing at the library that I want to highlight is when my kids got to go there and read to the dogs. This was such a huge part of my son's homeschool life because he didn't really like reading, but yeah, he loved dogs and he would read to a dog all day. And it was so sweet. These dogs just laying there and they let you pet them and they'll listen to any way that a child reads and give good feedback and the licks and the love, right? So that was super cool. Our libraries, some of them have homeschool programming or after-school programming that is very rich and worthwhile of your time. A few other things that stood out in our field trip journal were group tours that we set up with our homeschool friends. There's a little Italian ice store. I love the owner and my kids love to eat the Italian ice there. And so he graciously set up a tour. The place was so small that they took them in the back in groups of like 5 to 10. And that was very special for them because they already had this connection with this little ice place and the owner, and he let them in the back door to see their Italian ice processed. It was priceless. They loved it. Those are some ideas for around your town. And now let's stretch it out to day trips that you might take that are a little bit further out. For us, we live near Tampa. It's like maybe 40 minutes to get there. So I'll give you an example of that as a one-tank trip that we experienced many times. We would go to see a school show sometimes at the theater, whether it was a play, maybe the symphony, something like that. And then afterwards, we wouldn't just hop back in the car. We had to eat lunch, right? We either packed our lunch or found a really cool place to eat. In many cities like Tampa, they highlight their history, and there's lots of interactive, passive memorials and signs and things where you can find out more about how the city was developed. So when we packed our lunch and ate by the river, there was some information about how they used the river to transport goods. And there was another time after a show that we were walking around downtown for lunch and found this Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders Trail. It was this really great historical marker, a big statue and all this information that we had no idea about. And it's pretty significant, right? Teddy Roosevelt and his cavalry going through the city that we live near. I could have planned that, but I didn't. We just ran into it. And because I had an eye for educational adventures and looking for historical markers, it opened the door for us to experience that little side educational adventure on the way to lunch. It was awesome. Living history right there. Those are some examples of one-tank trips that we really benefited from. All right, the last point I'm going to talk about is road trips, like full-on, plan in advance, find a hotel or a VRBO to stay in. And this is where I discovered many homeschool-specific events around our state when I was attending the homeschool convention. If your state has a homeschool convention, but you can't get to it in person, you can sometimes access virtually their vendors list. And so you can see all of the businesses that are there and contact them, or maybe it's even on their social media platforms where they're telling the homeschool events that are coming up for the school year. If you're at convention with your friends, you need your community, you need your tribe. This is where you guys can plan together. These are going to be things that you're going to have to budget money for in time and energy. Consider it like a little vacation, a long weekend maybe. More and more places are offering events and special classes to homeschools. Here's some examples of what we did. Kennedy Space Center had an amazing homeschool day. That was one of the first things that we did. And so my daughter was real young, but it was for all ages. And I mean, it was phenomenal. I hope they still have those. Disney World offers educational classes. The one that we went to was at Epcot, and we got to go behind the scenes on some of the rides and learn about like the physics of the rides, for example. Busch Gardens, we also had a special homeschool day, got lots of up-close animal experiences, got to go into the animal hospital section and the nursery and, hear little workshops from the veterinarians there. The zoos and the aquariums offer homeschool classes and sometimes have a special homeschool day. And one of our other top favorites was Homeschool Day at the state capitol, which in Florida, the FPEA sponsors that. A couple of other things that we did that involved passports. Through the United States Lighthouse Society, we got this little passport book, and each lighthouse has a little stamp. You put it in your book, and you can see at a glance this little collection of all the lighthouses that you've gone to and the stamps that they've given you. It makes it even more special. There is a passport book program by the state parks and the national parks. Also, the Junior Ranger program. That is through the state and national parks. They offer virtual activities, but also workbooks. You can find these books online, or when you go to a state park and they have a gift shop, they have those in there. I love my Florida State Park passport book. The stamps that you get from every park are very unique. And you add that with some entries in like a nature journal or a field trip journal. It makes a good memory, but the learning that you experienced becomes more impactful for the kids when they have that kind of collection. All right, those are some of the fun road trips that we did, along with all of the other ideas that started with the virtual trips. What you can experience around your yard or your garden, your neighborhood, the town and the city that you live near, and then the road trips. And that's just in my neck of the woods. Research your area. There's so much, and this might help you understand why my husband used to say to me, I don't know why you call this homeschooling. You're never home. But I'm so glad that I did that while the kids were young, because knowing the expectation of the academics that they have transitioned to in high school, we don't have time to do all of the out and about type of learning adventures, nor do they really want to do that with me. They've taken control and independence in their studies. So do it while you can. We hope these ideas have inspired you. If you need help figuring out what do I do, we are here every week with our online community. We have a 24/7 forum. We have direct messaging. It's all private, password protected. We even have a dedicated kids forum where they can safely and privately share their adventures with other students in our community. We also offer coaching sessions where we can have a strategic problem-solving call one-on-two, because Jenny and I do those together to help you plan and carry out those plans, follow up and find out how it's going and make modifications, anything to support your homeschool. And we're dropping the link to that free homeschool style quiz. So if you don't know what your style is and you have no idea how to fit any of these exciting educational activities into your life, start with the quiz and just go for it from there. Rich learning experiences with creative ways for your kids to respond, always a valuable way to spend a homeschool day. And leaving you with a bit of scripture about taking Jesus with you on these adventures. It's from 2 Corinthians 2:14 to remind you that every educational journey is better when you take Jesus along. Here it is. But thanks be to God who always leads us as captives in Christ's triumphal procession and uses us to spread the aroma of the knowledge of Him everywhere. All right, get out there and have some adventures where the Lord leads, and we'll see you next week for another new podcast episode. Take care.